In this video, I'm going to show you how software engineers can use Cursor AI to increase how quickly they can program on existing production-ready code bases. This is not how to build an app from scratch if you don't know how to code. There are plenty of videos on this that are really cool, help people release things way above their level. What I will be covering is the main features of Cursor, ways you can apply each of these into existing projects, and then some little tips that I've learned along the way. If you're anything like me, then I think about a 30% increase in speed when you're working with technology that you know well is likely. And then if you're working with technology that you don't know so well, a 3x is really not unreasonable. I'm going to try to keep all of this under 10 minutes. Let's go. First, Cursor is not a plugin, it is a full IDE that you download, but it is a fork of VS Code, so all of your settings can be ported over, and then every plugin I've tried also works. There's four ways you can use AI in Cursor. Autocomplete, where it tries to guess what you would like to type before you do. Chat with code, which is similar to copying and pasting code into something like ChatGPT. Bulk editing, where you can ask it to rewrite or factor blocks of code. And then the fourth is Composer, which allows you to work on multiple files, insert, delete, edit. I'm just going to be working on this simple little recipe finder app where you can sort and filter recipes, plus there's some pagination. It's Next.js with some gRPC APIs, and it is a small code base just so I can demonstrate. But the examples are things that can be applied to large, complex apps in any programming language. We'll just quickly here cover the most basic level, which is code generation or autocomplete. Anyone that's used GitHub Copilot will be familiar with this. I'm just going to write a function here that will filter recipes. As you can see, as I'm typing, it's trying to guess and make some suggestions. It does an okay job at this, saves a little bit of typing, but as you can see, it doesn't even get the types correct as it doesn't have a large enough context on what's going on here. Something extra it does have over GitHub Copilot is knowing when you're trying to make changes on multiple lines. And it'll suggest where to move your cursor to, and then this suggests a change for that line. So I'm trying to change the key here on every single line. It should figure out what the next line is trying to be, but it takes a little minute to figure it out. And then to that, I can just tab through. This is handy, but it's not life-changing. I had this turned off for a few weeks by accident, and I barely even noticed. Chat with code is where we first start to get a taste of what we can really do with more context. As soon as we come in here and hit Command and L, it comes up with a menu where we can chat with this file. This is just as if we were copying and pasting code over to ChatGPT or Claude. You have options for which LLM to use. I normally use 4.0 or Sonnet 3.5 because they give good answers in a reasonable time frame. OpenAI 4.0 Mini is a little bit quicker, but sometimes the answers are not as good, so I will occasionally use that. Very rarely am I actually asking questions about the code base, though, unless I have a bug or I want some suggestions. I tend to know the code base well and what it does. Usually, I want it to rewrite a section that's just a bit time consuming, and I think it can make the changes quicker than I could. So in this example, I want to change this simple card to be a link with some funky hover state. I keep the prompt fairly simple. It's good at figuring out what you're looking for first time because I have a decent amount of context already baked in. I've mentioned here next 15 just because I know LLMs are trained on old data and it might try and use an old way of using next links, but I probably don't even have to be honest. If we just take a quick look at the app, you see no links, no hover state. We then run this. It thinks for a little second. Because we've used a more advanced model, it puts me into a little queue. These really take much time, but you can pay to skip these. It then spits out a suggestion. This time it is rewriting the entire file, including the changes. Sometimes it will include comments in the code. It generates things like apply to all. In this case, I could just copy and paste this, but I'm lazy, so I want it to make the changes for me. I've actually messed up here. I did not click entire file, so it doesn't start from the top. You can see it shows what changes are being made. This is not good, so let's just cancel this and then we will reapply. Okay, perfect. Here we go. Easy to see what's changed. If there is comments in the code, it generates. These don't get applied into your code, by the way. It tries to figure out what should be changed. Come back over and look at the app. We now see we have our hover state. And then these are actually links. Great. That's still pretty basic, and we're relying on AI to decide the best way to do something. And I want to show you how to make it right in your own style. This storybook file here for the recipe card is written in a specific way with a meta and a story object. I could write this same file in a million ways, but once I've decided on a pattern in the codebase, I don't want others like this to follow a different format. If you look at what it actually renders, just the card. What I want to do now is create a story for the page pagination component, a separate component. I create the file and name it correctly. Come into the file. I then hit Command K, opening up this little option. I then tell it that I want to write a story for the page pagination component and reference that file. So this is already pretty cool, I think, that it can write a story or test based on another file. But I don't want it to decide on how's best. I've already got a format and a template. So I reference the other story file and say, give me it in this style. Again, it thinks for a little bit here. And then it rewrites me an entire file. As you can see, we're following the same format here. I quite like this, so I'll accept it. And if we come over, it's even given me 3 sensible defaults here. The first, the middle, and then what it looks like with the last page. Now for something a bit juicier, using the composer functionality to restructure some code. Here I've got a file with all of my API endpoints. I am using TRPC here just to give me some type safety on the front end. But the important thing is that I've got all of my endpoints and all of their logic in one single file. This is obviously not good. They're not easily testable. And I was, quite frankly, just being lazy when I wrote this. So let's restructure this. We open up Composer using Command and I. First, I'm going to tell it that I'm using TRPC because it might not be obvious. It's a newish library, but mainly because I want to show you how to add docs for libraries, especially anything that the LLM might not have lots of training data on. If we just type at, scroll down to add doc, and I've conveniently got the TRPC docs here. We paste them in, and then it tries training Cursor's AI on this data. Now, I'm not saying it makes it an expert, but it makes it much better at understanding context around libraries you're using with this added. I then prompt it with what I actually want in terms of restructuring. I want these endpoints split out into their own file in a way that's easily testable. Again, I'm still keeping it fairly brief, but giving an outline of what I want. Some specifics like, this own file and folders that make sense. It's then thinking again. We're in a little queue. Thinking. I can then open this up to see it work on each individual file. We've got our first API endpoint. We've got schema types. Starts making the others. Okay, nice. It then updates the original file that these need to be included in. Okay, this is looking good to me. So we've got all the logic as well. Perfect. Let's accept these. So I can accept each file individually, or they're all fine for me at the moment, so I can just accept all. Perfect. Right, now as we can see, it's not figured out my structuring of files. So we've got a slight issue here. So it's not perfect, but I can work through and change these. It just would have took me a lot more time to restructure and figure out all of this by myself. Right, this is the first time I've filmed anything even remotely like this. What I'm going to start covering is practical applications of AI, trying to get past the shiny demos and move towards things that are actually practically useful in work and for business. In the meantime though, I am all ears for anything you thought was good or bad about this video. Either comment below or reach out to me somewhere, even if you just want to chat. Ciao.